Did you have a good weekend?
I did. It was pretty chill. I'm trying to think what I did. I think I just hung out at home and did homework.
Well, good. You got stuff done. That's important.
I did. It was definitely productive.
Excellent. Well, this week, next week, people are going to start having their structure with skin stuff turning in. We'll look at those. This week, what I wanted to do is talk about that a little bit. And I'm noticing some issues with quizzes that I wanted to let people know about because I've tried to fix them and anything and everything like that. And I don't know if I am because I can't see what you guys are seeing. So if you don't mind helping me a little bit, um, and I'll respond to some things that people have said as well. And particularly, I'm going to want to go over quiz five, or quiz that does chapters 5 and 12, and look at that because I've re-edited it. Um, what baffles me is I've done everything that tech support says I need to do, and they're still not. For some people, it doesn't work, and for others, it does. And I don't know what's going on. So, but then I also wanted to go over some of the background artists that we have for this module, and then talk about what the whole assignment is in more detail, because we touched on it last week, and I wanted to talk about it more this week. Do you have anything that you want me to target as well, Mary?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Let's see if there's been a couple times where doing the screen share thing, it cuts off everybody. It hasn't been doing that lately. I think it's more having to do with the fact of my particular link to the internet. So we will see. Hopefully this will work just, excuse me, just fine. All right, Mary, can you see this?
I can.
Okay, good. Right, I have been grading. I've gotten a lot of stuff graded and done. I'm still going back over the grade wire sculptures. Some of the people that turned in stuff were a little concerned because I had said something about their photography, and they said, "Hey, I'm doing this and this. I wasn't able to get in. I wasn't able to do that. That's why the photos don't look right." I wasn't attacking anybody. I was just talking about stuff. And if you want like full points, just go back and redo the photos like we talked about. And I think I want you guys to feel no pressure at all because, or no stress about it, because you guys can keep resubmitting up until the end of the term. So I'm not attacking anything. I'm just pointing stuff out. And I want everybody to make sure that they understand that. So if you lost a couple points, everything is great, but the photo is bad or is not as good as it could be, just retake the photo and resubmit, and then you'll get those points. So um, I yeah, I don't want anybody getting stressed about that. So before we get it, talk about this next project more, I want to share um, some of the quiz stuff. Give me just a second here. I'm trying to find. Okay, this is excellent. Okay, so this is what the quiz looks like. And this right here, I uploaded a new image about 4 times. And so the image should be there. And the fact that it's not there really is bothering me. So I'm going to try to get that fixed. And this is something that just started happening about a week or two ago. And I've been going through and re-uploading images. And the reason I say maybe some of you haven't been able to see the images in the quizzes at all, but it started with French's sculpture of Abraham Lincoln. And most of the class could see it just fine, but there were a couple of people that couldn't. And now the images are gone for a lot of people. And I have no idea what's going on. So I'm going to go through and try to fix that this week. But if that's the case for any of these things where if an image is missing, you don't see it, if the images are gone, we have the titles of the work and you can look it up. If we copy that, mark de Suervo lit match. So I copy that and I go to a search engine, paste that in, and then do a search. I'll go to images. This should show me exactly the kind of thing. And so, that's it right there. This is the image that's in the quiz. We go back and look at the quiz. It's the same image. Now, if you do that search, and I want you to notice too, if we go back to the search engine, it returned a lot of things that are not this. But this is the only one that is actually titled lit match. And so if you guys are having any problems at all and you don't see the thing that's supposed to be photographed, I should have the name, the title and the artist right there as well. And on this one, it shouldn't be that I I, I don't want anybody to be upset about it because there's a link to a video where Adam talks about his sculpture as well. And so, between the two of those, you should be able to get it. But if you do something like this is not working, you look up lit match and it shows one of those other things that it is his stuff, and you respond to that. If that's what you're doing the best that you can, and I don't give you all the points you deserve for it, just email me and let me know what's going on. Say, hey, this is what's going on. And sometimes going through here too, uh, let's say you got 50 out of 56 points and you need to fix one little thing. The way that the Canvas system works is it overwrites every previous submission. And I use Canvas because the university has me, but another is it protects you because as long as the university keeps its accreditation, it's going to have your work on file. And so, this becomes a permanent record. And so your work is protected when you submit things through Canvas. And that's one of the reasons why I'll say, if you just need the extra 4 points, retake the quiz and you know do all the other answers that you already did correct, and then add the parts that you need to retake so you get those points. Um, and even if you're not exact on everything else, um, since I wrote in the notes, this is what you need to work on or whatever like that, um, you have that record there. As long as you don't erase our conversation, because I'm not going to, as long as you don't erase our conversation, you have a record of that conversation. And so you're covered as well. So is this making sense, Mary?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. All right. And for this quiz, the most common issue that people have had is on question number 10. I try to be as clear as possible. You need to talk about what scale has to do with your connection to the work, and you need to say something about each of these three scales. So we have monumental, life size, and miniature. And as long as you talk about scale and talk about an observation of each of those three, then that's going to be great. And this question 11, I do not care if you make the argument for the skin or the structure being the most important. That does not matter to me. What matters to me is that you've written something that articulates your thoughts about it. And almost all the time, I want that to be as clear as possible. When you give an opinion or you share your observation, it doesn't matter what your opinion or observation is. What matters is your capacity, your ability to articulate it. That's why if we go back to applying the tools of artistic critique, this module, again, the things aren't due until April. You look at the tools of artistic critique, and these tools have vocabulary, have the questions and vocabulary. I want you to use precise vocabulary. Again, I do not care what your opinion is. I do care that you are able to articulate it. You owe it to yourself to be able to articulate your own observations so that other people recognize the intelligence that you're sharing. And I think that it is really important for artists to be able to articulate. I think we've all seen interviews with artists that just, like Bob Dylan, can't really blame him. He was incredibly intelligent, but he never enunciated his words, so nobody could understand him. But there are artists whose work, if you see interviews, you think, oh, why did I waste my years liking their stuff because they don't know how to talk about it. I mean, they don't know, they're inarticulate. Now, granted, as artists, we create and we're not writers, we're not professional writers, but your voice matters and the words you use matter. I want all of you to be able to be at a point where anybody in a gathering asks you a question about something, you can answer it. You can answer it with confidence, and you can answer it with a precision where they cannot knock you down by saying, "Well, yeah, that doesn't make sense." If you don't like something, you're going to be able to articulate, well, I don't like it because it's unbalanced right here. And even though they're going for an informal balance, they really fail because you can really feel that this part of it is finished and capable, and this part of it does not feel like they're demonstrating their own skill level that they've already shown us over here, right? I think they're letting us down as an audience. You say something like that, nobody can say, well, it's just your opinion. Yes, it is your opinion, but you've backed it up with observations. And that's what I want all of you to be able to do. So, have Mary, have you gotten to this quiz yet? To the quiz?
I have not been able to yet.
Okay. All right. Please keep your eyes open, particularly see if this question number one, if that image is working or not. And like I said, anytime you come across an image that is not working, like Henry Moore reclining figure, if we look that up, we can find that online pretty easily. But if you guys come up across any of these things that is not working, you should at least be able to see what the name of the sculpture is, and I should be referencing it right here, and you should be able to find it that way. And at the very least, you can email me and say, hey, I've had a couple emails this last week where a person said I was able to do the quiz, but I was having problems because these images were not showing up. And I appreciated that because I fixed those images from my end. I don't, right now, I don't know why they're not showing up. So I just put in that large reclining figure by Henry Moore. And what it should be is this image right here. But any of these will work. Any of the Henry Moore large reclining figures. I think he made about 8 that were called large reclining figure, which is really irritating, but all of them will work as long as it's Henry Moore. And I do appreciate you guys keeping your eyes open because I've also had people that have pointed out, oh, this link is not working anymore. This link, that link only works some of the time or whatever it is. And I appreciate that. Now we're not going to look at these videos. I found out that no, I'm sorry. In this recorded class, we are not going to be looking at the video links. I want you guys to do that on your own after you watch this video of the class. And the reason is I'm fine. YouTube has really updated their copyright issue response system. And so even though I did everything for permissions to show these to you guys, I cannot record myself showing them unless I go back and do the same thing again and get a hold of the originator of these videos and get permission directly from them. And that becomes problematic. So we're not going to be watching those videos. However, I mean, in the class, but I want you guys to watch them on your own. So I'm going to go through and show you the work that some of these people have done. So this first one is David Smith. And David Smith, some of these remind me of the previous module where we looked at some of this stuff. It looks like, oh, I can't remember the name of the artist that would take scraps of metal that looked like they were leftovers and put them together using those scraps of metal almost like they were constructing with wire. And we saw that in the previous module. And it looks kind of like David Smith. You look at a sculpture like this, and it kind of looks like that. Or some of his stuff is like Anthony Gormley, same kind of thing. Looking some of those figurative sculptures with wire. However, what I want you to be looking at is his work comes down to he is creating these structures, and they look like they're balanced structures sometimes. It looks like there's structures that are caught in the moment of falling apart. But the thing that is important about David Smith is looking at that ratio and that conversation between the surface and the edges, or the skin and the structure. What's the structure going on? Like on this, the structure that's going on is we have these strong vertical lines, and we almost see, well, we see all the ridges and everything from all the angles and pieces and things like that. And then the skin, he's spending a lot of time as well texturing and polishing the surface. And that's the kind of thing that we're looking at uh, with the artist this time around. That kind of conversation. So I'm copying the names. I want to show you other stuff. Okay, here we go. Okay, this is the guy who did Lit Match. And you see that they're very similar. Some of the things that he's doing is he's using these I-beams that for the most part, there's these angles where the I-beams stick out in the air and it looks like they're almost resting on the sky. The balance, the balance feels wrong because it feels like it was caught in a moment where it's sliding over to the side. Now, the reason why this fits into the module is we look at these things and there's these areas where, I mean, this is a skin. The flat metal functions as a skin. And even his thing like, this is a lot closer to lit match where it's the I-beams. The structure almost feels like the parts of the I-beam, and then the skin is like that coating of red paint or the flat surface between the top and the bottom of the I-beam. And sometimes it almost feels like you want there, or you almost feel like air is stretched across some of the metal. You get this feel in some of these that they're in the process of falling over. They've been frozen and they're almost pushing against the air. And I'm sorry, I'm going on and on about looking at the artwork and you guys don't see what I'm seeing because I forgot to do the screen share. But this is what I'm talking about. See, this flat red metal becomes a skin, or in this case, it's the area of wide metal in between the narrower parts of the top and bottom of the I-beam. And he's playing with these. Now, there obviously, I mean, there's not an awful lot, arguably, of skin in this, but you can still see he's kind of playing with that balance. Another artist that we're going to look at is Richard Serra. And Mary, if you have any observations or anything that you'd like to point out, please feel free to speak up because I can't, when I'm sharing my screen and stuff, I can't see comments very well. Now, okay, we just looked at Mark de Suervo and or to Di Suvero, and he had a little bit of skin in there and an awful lot of structure. And Richard Serra goes almost the opposite, where it's almost entirely skin with just a little bit of the structure. In this case, the structure almost feels like the edges of these gigantic metal plates. And these are heavy enough, if they tilted over on you, um, they would only be able to identify you by the color of your socks. I mean, you'd be squished flatter than flat. And his work, there's he makes these really large structures that feel like if the people built Stonehenge ever worked with steel, this is what they would do, kind of thing. I mean, they're gigantic. They're almost architectural. But I think, Mary, can you see that it's almost entirely skin?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Right? I mean, it's powerful stuff. When you look at this thing and they're like 20 feet tall, it makes you feel like a fly the moments before your bottom hits your brain against the windshield. It's and some of his stuff has been it's um it's raw, it's visceral, it's emotional. He had a lawsuit where he was asked to build a sculpture in front of a county building, I believe. I believe this was him. And when he did it, what he did was, oh yeah, this is it. Um, he just built basically a steel curving wall before the in front of the entrance. People could still get around it, but from the where you parked and stuff like that, you had to walk around it. And the reason he did that is that everybody he talked to about the county government were really upset that they were not listening to what the people wanted. And so he comes up one morning and he finds out that the county is having people cut the steel and remove it. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, it's ours. We can do whatever we want with it." And did a lawsuit. He sued, I think it was the county, Los Angeles County. He sued them to keep his sculpture in place because it was his name and his reputation that they were destroying, not just the sculpture. And it didn't belong to the county building. It belonged to all the people in the county because their money had paid for it. And he won the lawsuit. I just think there's some, yeah, and his stuff I think is really, it can be emotionally draining because it can be very intense. Now, Steve Tobin, this is a guy that I think is really interesting. He goes back again to mostly the structure aspect again. So we're talking about people that are aware of structure and skin. He does use skin on the surface of a lot of his things, but still, it feels like he's doing a lot of like Mark de Suervo with the lit match. He's the skin almost seems implied, or it's wrapping the structure in these very narrow areas, or it's in subtle places like right here or right in this area. And oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing the same kind of thing. It's in subtle places like where it's a little bit wider, or it's in a joint, or in one area it's wider. And a lot of the stuff that he does, Steve Tobin, it feels to me like the skin is, again, it's implied in a lot of these areas. And then, of course, you get things like this where the skin seems to be stretched as a reflective material across the structure. And so these are reflecting the sky. And I just think really some interesting stuff that he does. So again, we're looking at artists that on one hand, they're all these artists deal with structure and skin and the tension between them. Some of the artists are leaning more towards uh, structure, and some of them are leaning more towards the skin. And so here's another one. And I kind of like this guy. And one of the reasons why I like him is um, because of the conversations he has started, kind of unintentionally forcing conversation. And that's Anish Kapoor. I know you guys have all seen these kinds of things where they're highly reflective and they just look like alien artifacts that have been dropped in the middle of a park. Uh, he will do things where, for example, he worked with some optics labs to create a pigment that was the blackest black that was physically possible. And then he copyrighted it. And then a British artist, you know, latched onto that, the fact that now you can't use the blackest of black or this Foligan because he copyrighted it. And this British artist responded by creating the pinkest pink. And in his copyright, it was open source use for everybody in the world except Anish Kapoor. Which I think is, and I still, there's a part of me that believes that that conversation between them was something that they generated to kind of inspire everybody to start thinking about who belongs, who owns ideas kind of thing. But he's another one of these guys like Richard Serra who works an awful lot with the skin. And the skin is done such that you can kind of see where the structure is in some places underneath it. Like on this cube, you can see clearly where the structure is. And earlier in other places, you know that the structure exists because the skin would not be able to be stretched over something that didn't exist. And I like this kind of thing where we can see, okay, the skin is very, very smooth right here, but we can see the structure where the skin is stretched tight over the structure holding it, the loop, and where we can see these ribs holding it on that shape. And he's still very aware of both the structure and the skin, the scaffolding and the coating. But like Richard Serra, he focuses an awful lot on the skin. Now, we're going to, some of these people use materials that we can actually see. Some of them, it's implied. Like with Anish Kapoor, I think we can argue that a lot of the structure for his stuff is implied because when we look at it, we want to know what is underneath the skin that we see. And for some of the, like Mark Di Suervo, we looked at his work and a lot of his stuff, the skin is implied, and some of the other artists we looked at. So here's Martin Purier, and his stuff, he does start doing things where we can see, okay, here's the structure. Can you see, Mary, can you see the ribbing that's on that dark blue?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a little bit. Then that ribbing kind of explodes out where here the skin hides almost all of it, on that dark blue part. And then where it emerges that um, there there doesn't feel like there's any skin at all. We just see the scaffolding now. And so, and he plays with these kinds of expectations and ideas quite a bit. Here's one that I think is a really good example of this idea where both structure and skin, it almost feels like the structure is the mortar in between the stones, and the skin is the surface of the stone. And I think that it's a really fascinating look. And we see some of these animal forms This right here, this kind of photo, it's almost entirely structure. We only see the scaffolding. But when you go at an angle and see this kind of photo, the scaffolding implies skin heavily enough that when we're at an angle, we can kind of see where the skin would go. And having this kind of area right here reminds us of that too. And so I think that this is really interesting. And here, this one, the skin itself is almost entirely transparent. So we see it there because the surface has a color to it, but then when we look directly through it, it almost disappears. And we see the scaffolding. Here's another example where the scaffolding is intense enough that when we look at it at an angle, the skin kind of shows up. It's implied. And this kind of thing, I think, starts doing that as well. So these artists are very aware of the scaffolding that goes underneath, the covering that goes on top, how to play with those kinds of ideas. This one I think is just interesting. It doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about. And then we're going to look at a couple architects as well. Well, before we go to this guy is somebody that just really makes my OCD happy, Richard Deacon. And let me show you some of his stuff. I just, I look at these things and I get, this has the scaffolding in there or the structure, and it's so intense, you almost feel where the surface is going to be. I mean, you don't need a surface on this because you know it's there. That's true for these ones. And then these ones right here, we can tell that there's scaffolding and structure underneath. There's in between the areas of skin, there's some structure and scaffolding. And he plays with this quite a bit, this idea. Some of them, he has a lot more um, skin present, and in some of them, he has a lot more of the scaffolding. But I think throughout, you're kind of most of us, I think we can kind of feel that the skin is there, even when it's not readily apparent, or we can feel that the structure is there, even though we don't see it everywhere. Like right here, you have these cross braces throughout, and that kind of implies the rest of the structure. I just think that's really interesting. Now we're going to talk about two architects who were very aware of this as well. And most of these artists seem to focus very heavily on skin over structure. I'm sorry, not most of these artists. Some of these artists uh, really focus on skin over structure. Others really focus on structure over skin. And this first architect we're going to look at is an architect that is very aware of structure and skin. And he really likes to focus on the skin. So, and that's Frank Gehry. I mean, look at some of his stuff. I mean, something like this. This is uh, in Barcelona. And you see that there is this scaffolding that you know is obvious that's holding up the skin. Here's the skin. And as an audience, we can see, or as a viewers, we can see the scaffolding on the exterior, and we can see it on the interior. That's a lot more hidden. Here, the scaffolding is in between us and the material of the skin. And here the skin is in between us. Oh, I'm sorry. Again, I did the same kind of thing. Barcelona. See, the scaffolding here is in between us and the skin, and here the skin is in between us and the scaffolding or the structure. Can you see that, Mary?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, and I think that this is an important balance to be aware of and look at because sometimes, as human beings, we are ridiculously curious. We're insanely curious. And part of the process of exploring the world around us is engaging that curiosity. And when an artist, like in this case, Frank Gehry, when he does something where you get something showing up in between you and other material you're curious about, it really forces us to engage our curiosity. Like in here, the fact that we can see a little bit of the skin, but the shot is taken so that we see them primarily the scaffolding. The first thing we think of is, I bet on the other side of the scaffolding is more of the skin. I want to go check it out. And I love that because then there's this constant conversation that is being built in between the architect and the viewer, or the artist and the viewer, because the artist has provided these things to engage our curiosity and actively engage us in exploring the item. And as viewers, it's exciting to us because we are walking around, and in our mind we're helping to build this thing as we explore it. We see how it was put together. We're kind of being shown behind the scenes of the thoughts that the artist is having. And I really love that. I think that this is a beautiful example of an excellent balance between structure and skin. And he's done an awful lot of other stuff. You guys, I don't know if anybody watched Get Smart, but with Dwayne Johnson in it. And oh, what's his face? He played Noah in a recent movie. Um, Evan Almighty. Steve Carroll, that's his name. Steve Carroll, one of the big showdowns takes place at the Disney Opera House, and that was a building that was designed by Frank Gehry. Really, there's some really amazing things. Look at this, where it's all about playing with those ideas of the curves of blankets and soft and gentle rolls of material that should not be gently and softly rolling. And he loves working with really interesting materials too. They're just fun as a viewer to see. And then one of my favorite guys out of this set, actually, I like all of these artists. There's a This person is probably one of the older ones. Let's see. Okay. And that's Buckminster Fuller. Mary, have you ever been gone to Disney World
I
in
went to the
Florida?
one in California. Is that Disneyland?
No, not Disney World in California is the one I'm talking about, and they might have something
Okay.
like this in Disneyland. But Buckminster Fuller was commissioned to design this gigantic geodesic dome,
Mm.
and he in the 30s had developed an architectural construction system that was incredibly cheap and incredibly easy to construct. And it's all based on this idea of triangles fitting together. He had come up with a map of the world that is the most accurate, you know, uh, contextual size comparison map that has been made, flat map that's been made. Um, it- and then this is one of a couple of his geodesic dome designs. But the designs that he came up with, I mean, the closest contact he had to education was playing football in college for a short while. He was almost entirely self-taught as an architect, and uh, this geodesic design with all these triangles interlacing and stuff is the only architectural structure that has been developed that actually gets stronger the bigger you go. And it is astounding. So definitely watch the videos about him. But here we see, the structure. When we look at Frank Gehry, even though we see both the structure and the skin, it feels like the skin is a little bit more important to him. And here, looking at Buckminster Fuller, we see both the structure and the skin. What do you think is a little bit more important to him? What does it feel like is more important to him?
The structure.
We can see the structure. Yeah, it's a vital part of the energy that goes into seeing it. So, in with Frank Gehry, it was the skin. With Buckminster Fuller, I think you're right, Mary. I think it's the structure. And he designed some of these he designed to be taken into a foreign environment with collapsible material. And then once it was set in place, it could be opened up. And as the structure was built, or as the structure expanded out, it would stretch the material out. And then you'd have a very quickly built, stable environment. A lot of his stuff is adapted for uh, designs of future Mars and Moon use, space bases, things like that, which is why this was built for the Disney World, the Epcot Center. Epcot sponsored it because it was designed to be the ultimate easy to build environment in space. But really fascinating stuff. And you see, there's a lot of these variations and things, but I think Mary's right. Completely right. Even though we do see the reflective nature of the skin, and it is an important component, the most important thing for him to show, I think, was the structure. So that's, yeah, definitely, it is not going to be a waste of your time to go through and watch these videos. And I think most of them are pretty short. Usually they're just a couple minutes long. Um, and I would definitely, check out the Buckminster Fuller website. And I believe Frank Gehry has some very interesting websites about him as well. And I thought I had teed up the next thing I wanted to look at, but evidently I did not. Okay. So we talked about the quiz and talked about the background. The quiz and the artist review, I probably should put the artist review in front of the quiz. They're both due at about the same time. But then we look at structure with the skin, and this is what I want people to be doing this. I want to look at examples of this next week, but I don't want to update the due date on this. So as many people as can, please work on this. And even if it is not done, show us what you're doing, please. All right, for this, we're going to explore that balance of structure and skin, and we're going to try to do the best that we can. Unlike most of those artists who played with both things, but were leaning towards more structure or more skin, I want you guys to do the very best you can to keep it as balanced as possible. And I know that that is going to be difficult. This is probably going to be one of the more difficult assignments for everybody. So please get working on this, turn stuff in so we can talk about some examples next week, and then fiddle with it, work on it. What you need to do is make modules, 5 to 8 modules that are each about the size of your fist, and each module is going to be made with structure, like popsicle sticks or skewers or chopsticks, things like that. And you're going to make just a very simple geometric structure that you can replicate easily because you're going to do 5 to 8 of them. If it's a little bit on the small and simple side, do 8. If it's a little bit more complicated, do 5. And in each of those, after you build the structure, you're going to put skin on some areas of it. And let me see. Give me just a second. I want to show you some from last semester so you can see what other examples, because these images are all student examples as well. Let's see. Oh, that's like I'm growling at myself because I'm not able to find exactly where I thought I had put these. Okay, here we go. Okay, structure with the skin. Looking at the things. And then okay. And I want to look at these and I'm going to critique them a little bit. This is a really good start, but it's a little bit unsatisfying to the point of the exercise. The exercise is we make 5 to 8 of these modules, and we want, the simpler they are, you make more of them. The more complicated they are, you make less of them. We're activating three-dimensional space, and we want to help the viewer to see that there is a balance of importance with both the structure and the skin. Now, I think with this, the skin is translucent, but notice that we have there it is iridescent, and that I think helps to make it so that it's more noticeable rather than keeping it transparent. And in my mind, I think that this is a pretty good balance between the structure and the skin, because if the skin was opaque, we wouldn't be able to see the interior structure. We wouldn't have that play between the skin and the scaffolding. But because it is iridescent, instead of just being invisible, I think we do. We can see in, but we're very aware of the skin. What I have an issue with, though, is this person only has 5 modules, for one thing, and they are very simple. What I would like to see, and I think would make this more successful, is having more modules and activating space more by not making such a stable structure. Instead of gluing this pyramid on this way so that the edges line up with the others around it, spin it, rotate it 30 degrees or 20 degrees or something a little bit off. And I think it would also be interesting to replace one on each of these pyramids, one of these triangular sheets with something that was opaque. So maybe you could see, yeah, you could see this is clear, but on the other side, that last face would be a color or something or solid. And I'm not going to ask, Mary, I'm not going to ask if this makes sense yet. I want to go through a couple more and then I'll ask you if it makes sense. Now on this one, they are going with the same kind of modular shape. They did a tetrahedron pyramid just like the previous one. But this I think works a little bit better on that respect because how many modules do they have in this? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. At least 7. 7 that I can see. And something else that I notice is right here, this might even be an 8th module, or maybe they made the module so that it's a little bit split open here and varied it a bit, which is fine too. On this, they used again a translucent material, but here they crinkled it and painted it. And I think that's a little bit more satisfying. It's a lot more satisfying than if the material had remained clear because it reads as a proper skin, but it still gives us a hint of what's behind it. Going to the next one. Now, this is a really good example of somebody going back and reworking their sculpture. Originally, this person, the module, you can kind of see the module is these pieces, about 4 or 5 of these triangles laid side by side. But when they had made the sculpture, it did not feel 3D at all. We're not making fans, we're not exploring two-dimensional space. And I really think it's more successful when the modules themselves are like boxes or blocks or pyramids that are themselves three-dimensional. And then you can just build up a three-dimensional environment using those. But this person really liked these flat module shapes and did not get a very good score because, like I said, the first one was just flat. So we talked back and forth a little bit, and they broke the modules up and then remade it so that even though each of the modules are flat, and you can see that the module is these 4 triangles next to each other, when they put them together, they put them all sorts of different angles. So they actually took pictures setting this up in different ways. Where, this is one way that's the most stable, but they also did it where it rocked forward, where it's resting on this point, and that one looks really interesting. And then you turn it over and backwards, and it's really interesting that way. So even though the module was flat, when they put it together, they made it very three-dimensional. It needs to activate the space around it. Here's another one that I think started out really interesting. You can vary module to module, but this one was not very satisfying in that the modules only share resemblance because they're made with the same materials. Like this is a module where it's almost like a diagonally cut rectangle, but it's not fully realized. This doesn't even count as a module because it's only a flat space. And paper was cut out and attached to it in different triangles and stuff, but this wasn't really satisfying. And it also still feels very, even though it does have dimension through that way, one side, the front side facing us is very flat, and the side facing away from us feels very flat. It doesn't feel like it activates the space around it. Mary, can you tell what the module is that they made from this?
Um, sorry, are you asking like what the main shape is, or
Yeah, what's the shape of the module that they made and replicated?
just a pyramid?
Yeah, look, yeah, it's a four-sided pyramid, exactly right. Now in this, with a module shape that's simple, that's that simple, and this looks like they're pretty small too. Um, they need to be about the size of your fist, for one thing. And the other thing is when it's a really simple module, you need to make more of them. So for this person, I think they are starting in a really good direction. But again, I think that this is better than the very first one that we saw because it is activating the space more. But I think it could benefit from at least three or four modules, additional modules. Maybe one of them is attached to the front here and sticking towards us. Another one is pointing up towards the top with just its bottommost point attached or something. Playing with that idea of getting the space around it to kind of explode a little bit. But I think, yeah, it's the module is this four-sided pyramid, and two of the faces are covered with black paper. So yeah, excellent. This one is the module is obviously a cube, and each of the cubes have either two or three faces covered with paper. But for this one, I think that they started in a really good direction. What is a little bit makes me a little bit sad is that there this is put together very what's predictably, where the cubes are resting next to each other almost like Legos. Now, I think what could have made this really, really interesting is instead of putting the cubes together so that they share like braces, what about what would happen, do you think, if this cube, when it was attached to that cube, was turned just a little bit or slid just a little bit over? So maybe this bottom point is the same as this cube on both of them, but they rotated this along that bottom point just a little bit so it slides over next to the other one and it's not entirely predictable. I think that would have made it very interesting. And they did, in their defense, they also did a really nice photo where uh, it looked a lot less stable. Now this is one of my favorite ones. I really like this one. They are using that simple four-sided pyramid again, but the difference is they've made about a dozen or more modules like that, and they've attached it at all sorts of different angles. Some of them are predictable, like right through here, but many of them aren't. Some of the paper they used is attached in the same spots on a couple of them, and others it's not. Some of the triangles, there's a lot of these stable closed triangles, or I'm sorry, stable and closed pyramids, but some of them they opened up and took off one of the faces, so we just see the triangles. And this I thought was really fun. And there's another picture of this where it's actually standing on this end, and that was really cool to see. So I think that works better, a little bit better. Okay, Mary, are you kind of seeing where I'm going with this, with these
I think
examples?
so. Yeah. I'm just trying to come up with my own ideas. I haven't done anything like this before, but it seems like a cool project.
Now, this I think is a really beautiful example of this assignment. When we look at this, what is the module? Can you tell what the module is they made?
Prison?
Yeah, it's a rectangular prism. And it looks like to me that each of these rectangular prisms shapes, they put maybe two pieces of paper on. One of the things that I really like about this, yes, they did attach these, so it is, side by side, all using the same kind of angles and everything, like that one with just the cubes. What is different though, is that by making a box that is longer than it is wide, they've been able to change, some of these are horizontal, like these three, some of them are vertical, like these three. They put ones that were similar to each other, they rotated them a bit on their axis. So even though this one right here has a piece of paper right here and here, just like this one has the paper facing us as the viewer, and here the paper's facing away. And here the paper is on the top and on the bottom. Here's it is on the front and the back, side and back. And so they're playing with those kinds of expectations. And I think that this is an excellent example. And I really like how it activates the space around it too. When we look at it, I want to zoom out a bit. We have this thing coming sticking way out this way. This is sticking out this way. This is sticking out that way. There's one back here sticking out this way. It sticks out in every direction and it helps to activate the volume of environment around it. And I think that turned out really good. This is one of those ones, I believe that this person did work on this some more, but they were doing that flat fan kind of thing. And I can't show you a picture of where they glued it together so that they're facing in different directions. But this is a good example of why I want you to make the module itself three-dimensional, because it will make it easier on you when you put those modules together to make a three-dimensional piece. So maybe make a really tall, skinny pyramid like that. This person was kind of creative. They used plastic for the modules, relatively simple colors. I think this could be a lot more successful with about 3 or 4 more modules coming out at all sorts of different angles.
Do all of our modules need to be the same shape, or could we do like a cube and a pyramid or anything like that? Or do all of it need to be the same?
Well, on this one, this is a simple triangular prism. They made 3 different sizes. So it's all the same shape at 3 different sizes. So it can be variation. And if we looking back, let's see. Oh, on this triangle one, they have 2 or 3 different sizes. There's a small one, a medium, and a large one. And then they also have a couple that are unfolded. So you can play around with it a little bit, but I would like them to be as close as we can get to each other. And we're going to go back and look at the student examples in just a second. This one, I thought I wanted to show you this one because this one is fascinating to me because the skin, uh, I mean, there's almost no skin, but each of these modules is so tiny it starts kind of hiding the fact that there's no skin. And they did like 12 or 15 of these modules and just crammed it together. I don't think that is as successful of a triangle one as some of the others that we've seen. And this is an example of a bad photo. I don't know why they showed this one, but I graded it with this photo, and then then I graded it again with the second photo that they sent. And their second photo, you can really see that it does engage the environment around it. And again, this is the four-sided pyramid shape. They have two pieces of paper on each of these, or one or two pieces of paper on each of them. On this one, I think this would be more successful. Again, if they had more of these modules because they are so simple and used a little bit more paper. Because almost all that you can see is the structure, but I think a few more pieces of paper on this would really help to emphasize that skin. So I want to go through the rest of these really as quick as I can. This is one of my favorite ones because the module is a three-sided pyramid, but what this person did is really play with expectations of that pyramid. Sometimes three of the sides are elongated. Sometimes they're not. The paper covers some of the parts, and other places the skin is made with these toothpick structures, just as a lattice work. And I think this is really a fun one. Um, I think it gets to the point where the module is almost entirely lost, but if you look carefully, you can see it. And I liked how they experimented with the different kinds of skin. This one I thought it feels really, really small. And I didn't like this photo. They worked on it a little bit and turned it back in. And the second time they did it, you could really see the module shapes, and it was more satisfying. I like this because of the variation of the skin types, because you have the aluminum foil, you have this orange paper, and then you have this polka dot paper. And it was kind of fun to see that as well. This is one where there's too much variation of the modules. Like this one is a big box. This one is a skinny tall box. This is something where it's not even a box anymore. Starts becoming a pyramid. And this is it is a pyramid. This is a pyramid as well. And then here the boxes are all squat and like cubes. So this one, it's interesting, but it did not really fulfill the function of the assignment. The modules are not repeating, and there's nothing activating the space in front of it or behind it, just these little things pointing up. And I think that this would have benefited from sticking to deciding on a module shape and then replicating that with a little bit of variation. This one went through a couple variations, and I think that this was a lot more successful because their module, yeah, they played with the box idea, and they also thought it would be fun to put in some of these four-sided pyramids. And at first, that was kind of bothering me a little bit until in some other photos you realize that there is a kind of a bridge shape between the box and the pyramid, this blue one right here. And I thought, okay, maybe it'll work, but I actually had the class vote on it, and they decided, yes, these modules are close enough that it will be okay. And this one, they reworked how they attached the modules to each other a couple times and ended up, I think it's a lot more successful than it originally was. And I think that this is another good example of using a simple shape, replicating it over, and it makes it very interesting. On this, though, the shape is so simple, I think a couple more modules again would be called for and make it more interesting. And then the last one, this one, I think that this was an interesting idea, but it did there was really no module development very much. I mean, no, that's not entirely true. We kind of see it's like a pyramid prism almost right here and here, but there isn't much. growth. If you're doing something, again, if it's simple, you need more modules. So I'm really hoping that all this makes sense to everybody. To everybody. Mary, do you think you have a better idea of the kind of thing that we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, these are three different examples. Out of all these, I think the middle one works the best. You have a simple module. They made 8 of them. It's the exact same module. But what I like about this one is they put it together in kind of a fluid way. So it curves away from you and then loops back again. We see the structure in between us and the skin in some areas, and we see the skin between us and the structure in other areas. And I think that that is really interesting. I think it's a really good balance. It doesn't feel that the inside is hidden. It feels like it's played with more, and it kind of rewards you for looking at it. This one, Mary said, asked about, can we vary the modules? Well, in the middle one, they're all identical. But in this one on the left, you see they started off with this orange crate type shape, and then several of them they cut a notch out, and they did something interesting there. I think that that's fascinating. Uh, you can see how they did different techniques of applying the skin. Like in this, the on the lower right hand side, the skin is applied directly against the structure of the box, but they use toothpicks to kind of put the skin about a half an inch away from the surface on this top part of the same modular piece. And it almost looks like to me that the modules are not regular boxes. Now that I see them, it looks like to me that the boxes have these notches out of each one. So maybe that's what the module is. It's, this notched box kind of thing. I think this is really interesting. It does a good job engaging space, but it makes me a little bit uncomfortable because I don't think it doesn't feel to me as balanced as this one. I don't know, but I do like it. And then this one, I don't think that this is as successful as each of the other two module wise. I think it is very interesting structure and skin wise. It looks like to me the module is instead of a geometric form, they did two tetrahedra attached together like this, and one of them has paper on it, the other one doesn't. And it looks like that's what the module is. And it was a simple module that was not very three-dimensional, but it looks to me like they made about a dozen of them and then put them together, kind of twisting here and there, moving it a little bit so that it feels almost like a snake shedding its skin. But I think this has a pretty good balance of structure and skin as well. Now, on this, I think the middle one has the cleanest balance between structure and skin. On the right, it feels to me that it's more structure. On the left, it feels to me that it's a bit more skin. What do you think about it, Mary?
Sorry, which sculpture were you talking about?
I'm talking about the middle seems to be the most balanced between
Mm,
structure and skin. The right, it feels to me like it's a little bit more structure than skin. You see the scaffolding more. And on the
hmm.
left, it feels like there's more skin than structure. You can see the skin more.
Yeah, I agree. I like how the middle one is more fluid. Maybe you can see equal parts skin and structure.
Hmm. Are you recognizing a repeated module in each of these three examples?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. And this middle one, I think where my arrow is tracing is a module. It's kind of like these couple triangles put together.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
on this, it looks like to me the module is like this box shape with this notch cut out. And on the right, it looks to me like the module is these two tetrahedron shapes that are attached at the narrow end. Does that kind of look like what it is to you too?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Excellent. Right. Do you have any questions about this assignment?
So are the main materials for this project provided already in like our box we got at the start
Yeah,
of the semester?
and you could play with those materials. That's to get you started. I think, do you have popsicle sticks or skewers in your kit?
I think I have popsicle sticks.
Okay. And if you guys want to use skewers instead, that's fine too. Um, you can get a bag of like just um, bamboo skewers for incredibly cheap that you can use. Cut them however long you need to make your modules with. But this person on the left used cardboard from the box for their skin. Person in the middle and the person on the right, it looks to me like they used some of that Japanese style paper almost, especially on the
Mm.
right. On the middle one, they could use index cards or regular paper, like from the kit as well. So, and if you guys want to use wrapping paper or other stuff, that's just fine. I've had students where I've had a couple students that were really big on crochet, and so some of their skin areas were crochet that they did. Other people have taken just two different colors of paper and woven them together, and then they kind of glued it and made the sheet of woven paper, and then cut that up for their skin, and that was really interesting. Um, Other people have taken like damaged books and magazines from DI and used those as their skin. Paying attention to which direction the type was in, the angles of that and what that might look like. Other people, when they did just the white paper, like this middle one, took it and then did really tight accordion pleats. So it had a little subtle texture to it. And so there's lots of different kinds of things. And then other people too have just taken the material straight out of the kit and then painted on them. I think one of the more fascinating ones that I've seen is somebody used saran wrap and then got uh, it wasn't a blow dryer, it was more like a heat gun because it got a lot hotter than a blow dryer. And after applying the plastic wrap for the skin, they blasted it with the heater so it kind of melted the middle, and then they put another layer over it. And that's really fascinating too. So yes, use what's in your kit, and then when creativity strikes, use other stuff too. But if you are going to be cutting up people's books and things like that, make sure you have permission in writing so that you don't get in trouble. Do you have any questions about what we're looking at with this assignment?
No, that
Okay.
sounds good. Yeah.
All right, great. We went over the quiz a little bit. Yeah, and if you guys please continue, if I am not correcting links and you don't see the images, um, please let me know, and I will keep going back and either putting new links up or talking to tech and see why the photos that I put in place aren't showing up for you guys. But yeah, double check and um, I don't I just don't know why some of them aren't showing up for some people. But anyway, I am almost caught up with all the grading stuff. I'm going to try to get that done this weekend. Next week, please, a couple people try to get this done so that we can show it off to people and talk about it more. And then I believe it's the week after that that these are due. But use this time as well to get caught up on other assignments because we aren't at the breakneck every 2 weeks thing again. So double check and make sure that you get your stuff caught up and resubmit it if you need to. All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Mary. Thanks for being with me tonight.
Thanks.
And I hope you have a good week and weekend. And I look forward to seeing the work you guys do next week.
All right, sounds good. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
oh, I'm sorry. Could you stay on for just a second?
Yeah.
Um, I don't remember which class it is. I have a couple online classes. And one of the questions I got was somebody said, do I still need to submit the 5 things even though I attended live? And yes, in the attendance assignment, if anybody has that question, the attendance assignment you did need to submit the 5 things, whether or not you attended live. Just to validate your presence and get your attendance points for that. So whoever asked that question, I hope that's a good answer for them. All right. Thank you, Mary. Thank you very much for being here tonight and participating. And I look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, of course. Thank you again.
All right. We'll see ya.
Bye.
Bye.